What do y'all think of ABA? Applied Behavior Analysis, or is it Applied Behavioral Analysis? ABA is a very common therapy for kids on the spectrum. In fact, when my son was diagnosed just under 2, they recommended that he did 40 hours a week of this therapy called ABA. And I started it. We were scared. We didn't know. And they were like, you have to do 40 hours a week. It's the only chance he has of becoming independent. It's the only chance he has of becoming verbal. They fucking scared us, okay? So we started the services not really knowing anything about it. It was just the thing that insurance covered and the thing that every fucking doctor, psychologist, therapist recommended we do. So we did it. I think I lasted with Alfie about 3 weeks and I said, bye-bye. I said, bye. Get out of my house. Now, before you come at me, because I know a lot of behavioral therapists are going to be saying, don't talk shit. Okay. My experience when Alfie was just under 2 was not a good one with it. Now, I have some changed feelings around it for certain things. So I want to talk about that. But his experience, what made me stop services was they do this thing where they want to extinguish problem behavior. And so it's really as simple as you reinforce the good stuff and you ignore the bad stuff is sort of what they do. And I know maybe if I'm getting any of this wrong, comment below. But I remember there was a time where Alfie was having a meltdown. This wasn't like he wants candy and I'm not giving him candy, so he throws a tantrum. Sure, ignore that for a bit. You say, sorry, bud, not right now, and ignore the crying a bit. Sure. This was different. This was a full-blown meltdown. I tried to go console him. The therapist said, stop. You do not look at him. You do not talk to him. You do not react to him. We want to extinguish this, so you need to ignore the behavior. My mom was in town. She was fucking shaking. She's like this. She's looking at her grandson who's screaming and crying and literally on the floor, literally moving his body in ways that he can't control, red in the face, struggling so hard. And then we just kept being told every time I tried to go or my mom tried to go, stop. You ignore him. You don't look at him. You don't react. This is how this behavior is going to go away. And we are fucking horrified. Then Alfie opens the door. He's 2, opens the door, runs out and continues the meltdown on the grass, almost banging his head on the grass. At that point, Grandma said, fuck you. She ran out and grabbed her grandson and consoled him. And it's like, cause think about it. If me, a 39-year-old, was having a full-blown meltdown, shaking panic attack, I would want someone to console me. I would not want you to ignore me. So that I just disagree with. And I was so disturbed. Quick thing before we dive in. If you've ever been going about your day, making lunch, scrolling your phone, and then out of nowhere, absolutely nowhere, your brain hits you with something like, what if I don't actually love the people I love? Or what if I'm secretly a terrible person? Instead of just letting it go, your brain just latches on. And now you're spiraling and Googling it at 2 a.m. and asking people around you if you're a monster or a narcissist, even though getting reassurance never actually makes it better. Those sticky, unwanted, repetitive thoughts might be signs of OCD. And I want to be clear, OCD is not just about organizing your closet by color. Real OCD involves intrusive thoughts that cause intense anxiety and behaviors you feel compelled to do just to get temporary relief, even though that relief never lasts. The good news, OCD is highly treatable with the right specialized therapy, specifically ERP, exposure and response prevention therapy, which is the most effective evidence-based treatment. That's where No-CD comes in. No-CD, pronounced no-CD, is the world's leading OCD treatment provider. All of their licensed therapists specialize in ERP. They do live face-to-face virtual sessions, and they help you take the power away from intrusive thoughts so your energy can go back to doing the things that actually matter. Therapy with No-CD is covered by insurance for over 138 million Americans. If any of this sounds like you or someone you love, don't wait. Visit nocd.com to book a free call with their team and learn how they can help. That's nocd.com. I didn't like the way they would look at his favorite things, like food, a certain snack, and then say, put your hand on your head. And if he didn't do that, he wouldn't get the food. I'm sorry. To me, that felt, first of all, like it could give him issues around food. And I just think there's other ways. And why the fuck do you need him to put his hand on his head anyway? But that's my shit talking around ABA. I know that since then, the therapy has evolved that you can request to not use food as a, what do you call it? There's a word. I'm blanking. It's going to annoy everyone. But preferred activity that you use to get them to do the behavior that you want, that thing. So you could say, don't use food. Okay. Now, so I was not a fan of ABA. On top of that, I watched several videos and read several essays of autistic adults who had ABA therapy when they were children and said it traumatized them. Okay, so for me, that was enough. We stopped the services. We continued with speech, occupational therapy, and play therapy, and things of that nature. And so now, cut to 6 years old. Starts eloping, attempting to leave, scaling the fences, even on walks, running away from me, really bad. I know of an instance where he got out when I wasn't home and the police were involved. It was horrific and terrifying. At this point, I'm like, what do I do? So I think, okay, this is where, for me, ABA could come in handy, is for safety and eloping. Maybe they have techniques that I have not yet thought of. So I've just recently started him in services. Now it's been like 2 weeks and I'm just there and making sure that, and I don't know, you guys, to be honest, like I really don't know. Like if they don't show that they're making really good progress around just eloping, like I was like, let's be clear, this is the thing that I want to focus on is eloping and safety. I don't want, you're not the speech therapist, the fine and gross motor shit that he's got that. We got OT. This is about safety. And so it's compliance with safety. When I say stop, you fucking stop. Okay. So I'm hoping they can help with that. But I just want to be clear too, that I know that this specific therapy has evolved throughout the years. It has really disturbing origins, but that it's evolved. And I have a guest called Mary Barbera, who is a ABA trained therapist. And she did that because her son was diagnosed with severe autism at 2. And so she learned everything she needed to know about it. She's written books about it, and I ask her questions about it, and I think she's a lovely woman, and she actually had some really good tips and tricks to keep my son safe, and I think she could potentially help you as well. I would love to know your thoughts on ABA. I see a lot of people in the comments saying that their kids have grown leaps and bounds and have had so much progress because of this therapy, and that their kids love the therapist and that it's a very positive environment. One thing I love about Mary is that she's all about prevention. So making sure that they get their sensory input and to avoid the problem behaviors. But it is a controversial therapy, and I have very mixed feelings about it, but I know it saved some of y'all's lives and helped your kids tremendously. And then I know some it has not. So I'd love to know your thoughts about this. Please be kind and respectful in the comments, because I know a lot of parents, they're just trying to do their best. And this is the only therapy in a lot of cases that is covered by insurance and offers significant amounts of help and therapy. So some parents have no other option. So it's best to be as Mary says, the captain of the ship, and really take control and say, this is not okay. This is what I want to work on. This is, how I want to work on it. So just to really take a hands-on approach. But okay, I'll shut up now. Here is Mary Barbera, and I would love to know your thoughts on this episode. Guys, today I'm sitting with Mary Barbera, who I've known for, oh my gosh, at this point, I met
5 years.
5 years, but you're a behavior analyst, author, and a mom who's helped thousands of parents better understand autism. And today we're going to talk about practical tools we can use. That's what I would love to talk about. Practical tools that moms can implement, like, I don't know, today. And just have an honest conversation too about ABA. I'm sure you're aware there's a lot of controversy around it. And I'd love to just dive into that if you're okay with that.
Awesome. That sounds awesome.
Great. So my first question I have for you is, what moment made you go from I'm a mom of a child with autism to this is my life's work?
That's an awesome question. Okay. So we're talking, my son, Lucas, is almost 30 years old. So Lucas is here. He is almost 30. He has moderate to severe autism. And then I have Spencer, who is 28 years old. They're 18 months apart. And Spencer's a physician now. So we have to rewind way back to the late 1990s,
okay,
before Facebook, before Google, before, barely AOL in place. I had a master's degree in nursing administration, married to a physician. Lucas started regressing, showing signs of autism, but I didn't know what the signs were. And my husband first mentioned the possibility of autism when Spencer was born, my second. And because my husband, who was an ER physician, was like, he should be aware of the baby. He should be like mommy's, even if he can't talk. It was like clueless. Like in my latest book, To Turn Autism Around, I say, like, literally we could have brought a plastic doll baby home for as much awareness as he had. And so that lack of awareness, and he had a couple pop out words, what I now call pop out words. And so when Lucas was about 21 months of age, in my first book, I start out the first page of my book saying my husband first mentioned the possibility of autism when Lucas was 21 months of age.
Okay.
And I remember, like, blue carpet, family room, my old house. I was like, what? And all I knew was like the movie Rain Man. And as a nursing student, I had been in like a mental institution there were teenagers there that had autism. And I was like, this is not my baby. Like, there is no way. Shut up, like, no. And on that day, I told him I never, ever want to hear the word autism again.
Wow.
And I shut him down, went into a deep state of denial for over a year.
Thanks to NoCD for sponsoring this episode. You're just living your life. You're making lunch for the kids, scrolling your phone, and then out of nowhere, your brain hits you with something like, what if I don't actually love my kids? Or what if I'm secretly a horrible, terrible, very no good person? And instead of letting it go, your brain latches on. And now you're spiraling, Googling it at 2 a.m., asking everyone around you for reassurance, even though it never actually helps. Those kind of unwanted, sticky, repetitive thoughts might be a sign of OCD. And no, OCD is not just about organizing your closet by color. Real OCD involves intrusive thoughts that can cause intense anxiety and behaviors you feel driven to do to get relief, even though the relief never lasts. You can latch onto anything, your parenting, your relationships, your health, and it can be completely debilitating. But OCD is highly treatable with the right kind of specialized therapy. NoCD says that OCD needs ERP, exposure and response prevention, which is proven to be the most effective treatment. And that's where NoCD comes in. NoCD is the world's leading provider of OCD treatment, and all their licensed therapists specialize in ERP. In live, face-to-face virtual sessions, your No CD therapist will teach you how to take the power away from intrusive thoughts so you can spend your energy on things that actually matter to you. Therapy with No CD is covered by insurance for over 138 million Americans. They also provide support between sessions, so you're never facing OCD on your own. If any of this sounds like you or someone you love, don't wait. Visit nocd.com to book a free call with their team and learn how they can help. That's nocd.com.
But, looking back, and we have videos and pictures, Lucas actually didn't look that bad. He, on his second birthday, the videos I saw some joint attention. He started typical toddler preschool at the age of 2 without any fuss, no biting anybody, no separation anxiety, he just looked like a speech delayed kid.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, okay, we're just getting over the hump. Everything's going to be fine. Still, don't say word autism. So finally, halfway through the toddler year, the preschool teacher and the director called us in and were like, they didn't say autism, but they said, the ratio is going to get worse. If he went to the 3-year-old class, he's a very young 2. So he had just turned 2 in July.
Okay.
So some kids turn 3 in September. So then you have those variables.
Yeah.
Like some kids are preemies, some kids, there's all these variables. So it was like they recommended we hold him back in the 2-year-old class. And, so at that point, then I was starting to come out of denial because it was like, kids were coming out going, can I go over to Johnny's house and play? And I'm like, ball, trying to get them to talk, so at some point at 2.5, I'm like, we are not catching up here. The gap is getting farther. So the day before his 3rd birthday, he was diagnosed. And my husband and I both thought it would be very mild, but it was moderate to severe by that point. And
you, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And you still say today he's moderate to severe. Can you define what that is or the different levels and what they are?
Well, and that's why he needs 24/7 care or supervision, which I don't want to scare anybody. I mean, I've seen kids of every age kind of do much better than I thought. You know what I mean? Like I've seen kids as late as like 6th and 9th grade where I am not that confident that they're going to live alone. And then I find out they graduated with a master's degree and are driving and doing, you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But one of my messages in all my work, because now it's like when I go back to, I never want to hear the word autism again, to I wrote 2 books. I have an online course. I say or write or type autism a million times a day. Lucas looked really good at 2 comparatively. And so even with the best of the best therapy that we could piece together starting at 3, he still needs, 24/7 supervision. But he's talking, he's not conversational. He's, but he's very aware. He's very safe. He's toilet trained, can shower himself, can dress himself, volunteers at the food bank with one of his workers. He's over the years, I've been like, we need 3 things, no matter for Spencer or for Lucas or for Alfie or for Poppy or for anybody listening, as safe as possible, as independent as possible, and as happy as possible. And so in there can be a real gamut of for all of us. I mean, it's not about can they do double digit addition or do they talk in sentences. We just need to really go with their strengths and needs.
Right. Are they safe? Are they happy? And are they as independent as they can possibly be?
And that bar is always moving,
Yeah.
And we have to keep it up. It's not like a once and done, age or, it's not like the game's over at any point. And so over the decades, I've pretty much come to terms with autism is my life. And most people spend their whole lives, coming up with their purpose. And it's like mine was given to me.
Yours was given to you. So that day when you had him assessed and he was diagnosed with moderate to severe autism, what was your reaction there?
Yeah, I was in tears. I was in tears on the way home. I talk about that in my first book. My first book is The Verbal Behavior Approach, How to Teach Children with Autism and Related Disorders. It was published 2007. It's in 20 languages. Wow. I've traveled around the world speaking about autism because of that. And on that day, on the car ride home, Lucas is silent in the back. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to teach him to blow out the candles for his third birthday. Yeah. I didn't know how to teach him to had some words, but I didn't know how to get more words. I didn't know how to potty train him. I didn't, it's like, so we're driving home. I'm in tears. My husband's driving. And he's like, well, I guess he'll never go to college. I guess he'll never get married. And I was just like, shut up. Yeah. I cannot. And then I was just like, you know what? Your brother never got married. We don't know. Spencer's only 18 months old. We don't know if he's going to get into drugs or do whatever. At that moment in the car, all my expectations, I'm like, why am I expecting to have, 2.5 kids and live in the suburbs and all my expectations just kind of went what am I doing? It doesn't matter if somebody gets married. It doesn't
in fact, I think it's a horrible idea to get married.
Exactly. And it's so in my first book, I say to Lucas, who's taught me how to hope, but not to expect, and to appreciate the small steps along the way.
Yeah.
And that, when people are in denial, which I was for a year, when people are getting a diagnosis and grieving, when people are grieving, their life is no longer normal. It's I get it, but nobody's life is truly normal.
No. And I think now, I'm sure you've seen, it's just such a different space now. And there's so much more awareness of what autism is. And people, I would say, are just way more accepting, to the point where, dare I say, it's become trendy. Have you noticed that on freaking TikTok? It's I think I'm autistic. I think I'm autistic. Some Gen Z people are like, I'm going nonverbal. I'm like, that's not how that works. You don't get to just decide to go nonverbal, but it's almost and sometimes that pisses me off because I feel like people don't quite understand what it is, but whatever. There's a lot more acceptance than when I would think when you had your son diagnosed, or even when Alfie was diagnosed. I remember I was freaking out and I didn't know, I couldn't find anything online. That's how I found you. You were one of the only people that had a hopeful message, and I got your book right away and it calmed me and I cried. And, whereas the videos I would see online were just terrifying. It was all worst case, most profound, severe. If you have a child with autism, they're going to be fecal smearing all over your walls, and it just like the worst shit you could possibly think of. It was just a lot, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but at the same time, though,
Yeah.
now that autism is trendy and neurodivergent, and, and then there's, anti-ABA, which you want to talk about, it's like, oh, don't listen to Mary Barbera because, she's pro ABA. It's like, she, and it's like, you don't understand. Like, I am all pro-child, pro-family. Like, let's work together to have each child reach their fullest potential, whatever that is.
Well, so let's talk more about that. So how Mary and I met, I read her book, reached out to her, and she was, I think, wait, you were in California for something, or you came?
I was in California,
and then you came and met Alfie, and you were kind enough to help me and guide me. And then there was I got, once I posted about my situation, that my son was diagnosed with autism, there were all these, some autistic adults saying that ABA traumatized them. And then I started reading about ABA and like how it came about, which, do you want to talk about that, or just explain to people what it is? But basically it's controversial and I think, well, I would love to just hear your thoughts on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So when Lucas was diagnosed, there was a book called Let Me Hear Your Voice. And it was about a mom who had a PhD whose daughter was diagnosed with autism. And back then, I mean, it was really horrendous. They were like, she's going to have to be institutionalized and everything like that. So she went into like the researching at the library with like card catalog kind of thing. She found this approach, which is and was controversial. It was by Dr. Lovas, and it was behavior modification, which now is ABA, applied behavior analysis, a little bit, of a more modern term and everything like that. But applied behavior analysis is the science of changing important behavior. It's like gravity. If somebody says, well, ABA is bad, it's like everything we do is operating under like a psychology applied behavior analysis. Basically, if you reinforce a behavior, it will go up. If you don't, it should go down. You know what I mean? So it's all the research on gaming, gambling, addiction. It's not like ABA was not developed for kids with autism. It's a branch of psychology. Okay. So that's the science. The science is irrefutable. It's like gravity. You drop something, it's going to go down. You know what I mean? Like the science of ABA isn't debatable.
It's if you reinforce something, it will continue. If you don't, it will potentially.
And there is also like other things like extinction and punishment, and there's a lot of different terms, but basically if a behavior is reinforced, it will go up. And so the science of ABA is operating whether you believe in it or not. It's the marketing research, it's business development, it's all kinds of things that are operating, whether we're talking about it and studying it. But so as a behavior analyst, we use the science of ABA, the science. But then there's different formulas like discrete trial teaching and video modeling and those sorts of precision teaching. There's different kinds of ABA that fall under it. Plus, there's also the thing that you got initially for your son, which was ABA. But when you're talking about implementation of an actual program, it can get very messy. It's not like different interpretations, different amount of hours, different behavior analysts running the programs and teaching. So it can get very tricky. So I've done like a lot of podcasts and blogs on, the principles of ABA, and the principles of ABA are always at play. It's just a matter of there are some recipes and some practitioners, not that they're not well-meaning, but you can really get a bigger mess by, you can have just some terms like extinction bursts, and you can have, different things that,
What is
safety
extinction
problem.
bursts?
So when you are reinforcing, when you stop reinforcing like something, a kid could have a bigger tantrum. So say every time Alfie says candy, you give him a piece of candy. And then somebody says, you know what? Tell him no candy.
Sure.
From now on. You know what I mean? You can have like a real problem. Like for some kids with severe problem behaviors, if you don't know what you're doing and you try different things, then what if they stick their head through glass?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Because they're so used to getting that every time they say it.
Yeah. So the extinction burst, that process is the tantrums are going to get worse. I've seen that,
Right.
just in working with Alfie. He has, for whatever reason, he's into slamming doors. It's not an angry thing. He just likes the sound of it. Whoosh,
Right.
whoosh, whoosh. And I'm like scared the glass is going to break. Right. So it's like, shut the door gently, shut the door gently. And then he doesn't like that because he likes the effect of the whoosh, So when you tell him, he gets upset, and it is what it is. Just real quick. So with Alfie, for my son specifically, I think we tried it for like a month, and it just, for whatever reason, it wasn't working. I found what I really didn't like about, and maybe this was the specific agency that I was working with, was when he was having meltdowns, not like a tantrum, like I can't have candy, so I'm going to scream. Like a meltdown, they wouldn't allow us to console. And I don't think that's right. I think if I, a 39-year-old woman, was having a meltdown, Mary, I would want you to console me. I'd want a hug and for you to tell me it's going to be okay. Yeah. And so that's where I went, okay, this doesn't feel good or right. Now that he's almost 7 and he's started eloping, I've called in a behavioral therapist to help me specifically with that because it's safety. But that's just my little backstory on that.
And yeah, the kind of traditional ABA and is, if you reinforce the behavior, it's going to go up and all that stuff. But like my work and my book, because I'm a nurse, I'm a behavior analyst, I have a PhD, I'm a mom to 2 kids, one who's a doctor, one who's pretty seriously affected by autism, is we want to be using, 8 positives to every negative. We want to be preventing tantrums.
Right.
We don't want to get in struggles with kids, because once a child starts having a tantrum and the mom wants to console and we're in a no-win situation. So my whole approach, my first book, my second book, my online courses, everything I do comes from a very positive mom background mom hat, RN hat, behavior analyst hat. Like, we want to get back to all positives,
Yeah.
keeping the child as safe as possible, as happy as possible, as independent as possible, and moving forward. And really, I say in my second book, Turn Autism Around, like the parent, we need to empower them to be the captain of the ship
Yeah.
because kids need to be engaged. I just calculated this probably since COVID, but kids, young kids, like 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, even if they're typically developing, but definitely if they have autism, is they need to be engaged in some way, engaged and supervised like most of their waking hours. And guess how many hours that is a week?
How many?
100 hours, 80 to 100 hours a week of somebody engaging the child so that we can kind of help rewire their brains so that they're speaking a lot more, safe, putting things together. Because when they're not engaged, they can get dangerous, and they can also get into, odd stereotypical behavior that isn't helping.
Like what?
Like repetitively, I mean, I had this one kid who would like repetitively put straws in bottles, or would repetitively stack things, or would repetitively rock, or even,
Well, what is the problem with that if it's regulating their nervous system to stack or to put a
yeah,
straw in a thing?
it's not a problem unless it's happening for, an hour at a time, when we could have somebody working with a child on language and
But
answering
why not
questions.
incorporate language into the straw into the
Yeah.
jar?
Yeah. Well, and that's where we have to have a really rich reinforcement schedule, which may involve putting things in jars or pennies in a bucket as reinforcement as you're working on language and answering questions and answering safety questions and tolerating a medical alert band and getting reinforcement for peeing on the toilet and, like getting dressed. And everybody's like,
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot. So having kids engage too much of alone, stereotypical time will not do the best to really propel them to the next level in terms of language, self-care, vocational abilities, and getting them to be as safe as possible, as independent as possible, and as happy as possible.
I see. Right. So it's like, but if you can bathe and get dressed, then you get 10 minutes of straw and jar time.
Yeah.
Right. So they're learning to be as independent as possible.
And maybe straw and jar time is when they are not talking, but then maybe it's 10 minutes of the word app or something where it's a higher level kind of STEM, which all of our leisure activities are STEM behaviors. So we're not talking about getting rid of stimming. We're just saying what's a higher level. Like for Alfie, for instance, I saw in a video recently, he was climbing in a tree and bouncing on a limb. I don't know how safe, like how strong that limb was, but just say the limb was not safe for him to bounce on because, it's weak and he's going to fall or whatever.
Yeah.
But like taking that ability, I mean, that's a huge ability, right? But like, how would he feel about jumping on a trampoline? How would he do with rock climbing? And looking at each child's what they love and developing motivation, reinforcement related to that so that they can really excel.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's funny, like, yeah, we have a trampoline in the front, but he loves climbing trees. And I grew up climbing trees,
Yeah.
so did my mom. Like it is really fun. But yes, I understand, like keeping them safe. Okay, so for a parent listening right now who feels overwhelmed, what is the first thing they can actually do today that would make a difference? Could you give us a few things that they can implement today, or what can they do to get started?
Yeah. So, 11 years ago, I created my very first online course and community. Initially, it was called Online Training for Professionals and Gung Ho Parents. And so over the years, I've had people from over 100 countries take one of my online courses. But basically, my 4-step procedure, which you can take like free, you don't have to buy my book or course or anything like that. But at the same time, the longer you kind of, if you're struggling, then you should learn more, because I think one of the differences now versus 11 years ago when I created my first course in 2015 is there's so much. There's so many, Instagram and TikTok and all this stuff. There's just so much that you can become just numb from like, wait, all this stuff. So I have 4 steps: assess where you're at, assess, including their strengths and needs, which I have a digital assessment. It's at marybarbera.com/assessment. You can get it for free. I paid, tens of thousands of dollars to have programmers develop this. And it basically gives you scores in self-care, like picky eating, sleeping, grooming, dressing. Then you get a score in language and learning, which is the bulk of it. And then you get a score in behavior problems. And then we take that, and it's actually, that whole digital assessment was created in 22 after my Turn Autism Around book. So page 49 is the 1-page assessment. I took this, paid a developer a lot of money to create the digital version. And so that's something they could do right away, is take the free assessment and find your strengths and needs in terms of picky eating, sleeping, potty, grooming, dressing, language, not just talking, but also understanding, also, pre-academics and imitation and matching. Those are all real good skills. And then in problem behaviors. And so we then balance things, and through the years, since I developed we call it the BECA, which is the Barbera Early Childhood Assessment, or the BECA, BECA. Then using my approach, we can get the scores to go up in all those areas. So it's not a quick fix.
Yeah.
It's, and everybody from around the world, and in the United States, I'm sure most people are listening from the United States, but around the world, everybody's got all this different stuff going. And that's fine. And you don't have to like buy my course to, do things. But I do feel like staying in the sea of free stuff and just numbing out on TikTok videos and, or even just reading a chapter on potty training or feeding is going to be a start. But
sure,
in the end, this is all pretty complicated. I feel like it's like spinning multiple plates all at the same time.
Right. So you just need that proper assessment, which I'm going to take yours. That sounds really cool and informative. And then assessing, like, what do you get to first? Like, for me,
right.
It's so funny.
The assessment is number 1 of the first step. And then based on that assessment, you develop a plan, and then you teach or intervene. And then you use some kind of easy data to see if you're making progress or not. And so it's basically the scientific method. You assess, you plan, you intervene, and you take data and start over. But it's all these plates spinning. So you're actually working on all of this at the same time. And that's why, like, my online courses and stuff empower the parent to become the captain of the ship. So even if you have help, you understand, like, we're working on all of this all at the same time. And I mean, I know it sounds overwhelming.
It does.
But at the same time, everything's overwhelming. Like,
it's like a full-time job, though.
It's absolutely a full-time job. I mean, I had nannies for 10 years. And, and ABA therapy and, but in the end, I really empower parents to become the captain of the ship or to delegate that,
Sure.
And to kind of co-pilot with your nanny or your mom or somebody or your lead behavior analyst or whoever, because it's not, there's so much, like, I don't know, I wouldn't call it infighting, but there's so much, like, debate, like, oh, should I do this approach or this? It's like, it's 100 hours of your week, which sounds completely overwhelming. And that's where I think my approach is, like, no matter who you have or what you have, I do think that, like, starting with my Becca assessment, which is free, is not going to hurt anything.
What's the biggest mistake you see parents making? Not because they're bad parents. We don't want to shame parents, but just because nobody taught them differently.
I think one of the mistakes I made is being in denial that there was a problem, telling my husband I never, ever want to hear the word autism again. And then going into a deep state of denial. Like, it doesn't matter. And actually, over the decades, I've learned, I feel pretty strongly about this, is that it really is hard to tell with a 2-year-old or 18-month-old, is this going to be autism? Is it going to be ADHD? Is it going to be a learning disability? During COVID, is it COVID isolation? Like, is it a medical problem? Is it all of the above? But we don't have, like, time to, we only have one Alfie at 2, one Alfie at 6, one Alfie at, one Lucas at 4. We don't have time and decades to wait for more research. We have to look at his strengths and needs, treat it, really take advantage of his strengths and try to really get him as, safe, as independent, and as happy as possible, and keep going. Which I know in some ways sounds completely overwhelming, and in some ways it sounds like, oh, that's, doable.
Yeah. I know, like, one thing that a lot of people have an issue with is using food, meaning, say this word. If you don't say this word, you don't get the food, because it could then trigger eating disorders in the future or just a weird relationship with food. What are your thoughts on that?
In my Turn Autism Around book, I have a whole section on feeding issues. And in a 2019 study, they showed that actually having feeding disorders is a high indicator for autism. So a lot of our kids have extreme picky eating and have food problems to begin with. I do use, unless the family is against it or the kid has a tube feeding or whatever.
Sure.
And if the family's against it, we can do it without food reinforcement, but I'm not like the one sitting here with an M&M going, say this or you're not going to get that. Like
Yeah.
um, it's very fluid, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's why I think like for me, using it around eloping or if aggressive behaviors start, that's safety. That's like I want to make sure his sister's safe, I'm safe, he's safe. Whereas for speech, I way prefer Gestalt language processing, the scripting and just narrating him through the day. And I've seen such amazing results with that. And there is a bit of like, he loves water balloons, so I'll tie the water balloon, but I don't just give it to him. I just say, let's throw the water balloon. And then he says it and I give it to him. And so I'm not like, but if he doesn't say it, I'll still give it to him in the end. Because I would just hate for him to feel like if I don't perform for you, then I don't get to enjoy my life. I think what maybe some people wrestle with is that when everything is reward based, like what is that doing to your psychology?
yeah, well, we all work on a reinforcement system. I wouldn't be here if this wasn't reinforcing to me. You wouldn't be interviewing me if there wasn't something. Like our whole world operates on a reinforcement system. If you reinforce a behavior, it's going to go up. If you don't, it should go down.
So what do you do when a child hits or throws and breaks a chair? What do you do?
Well, instead of and to answer that question, we have to say that 95% of our time, we want to be operating in a prevention positive approach.
Yeah. Okay.
So if Alfie or another child has a problem with throwing chairs, we might not have light chairs that they could throw. We might have recliners that they can't pick up and throw in the room, right? So we might do some environmental manipulations just for the time being so that it's not like, stop that, not, like
prevention is key. We're preventing.
Right. Prevention is key, right?
Okay.
So we might take away the chairs that he throws, have beanbag chairs, have recliners. And so then the throwing's kind of off the table.
What about he kind of swatted at me the other day. And he knows he shouldn't. It was a light one, but he was upset and he just did one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we don't hit, but what would you do in that situation?
Yeah, we have to be careful about giving attention to behaviors that we don't want.
So would I just ignore it? He hits me, I just ignore it?
Yeah, the problem is that you can't just, well, Mary said on the podcast, just ignore it. Like,
I know it's complex, but I just
no, but the problem is that whenever you're asking for a reactive strategy of what should I do when this happens, my answer would be, we need to not look at that 5%. We need to look at the 95% of the day.
Right. What happened before? Did he get enough sensory input?
And
yeah.
And I have a monthly calendar system that I talk about in my book, in my courses and everything. But what I would do is I would mark down, and I know this is very old school and you could do it in a phone, but I feel like when you have a team, when you have a nanny and you have a therapist and you got the mom or the dad or whoever, having a monthly calendar to go like, hit mom in the face, wanted Skittles. Like having some kind of data.
But okay, I'm talking like seconds after he hits.
Right. So I wouldn't give you a blanket, do this for any behavior. I would say 95% of the time, if he's hitting at you, take his hands to neutral and say, we don't hit. But we also have to write it down and figure out how to prevent that next time so that we're not constantly, because as Alfie or other kids get bigger, if we are just putting out the fire, oh, it happened 3 times today or 3 times last week, we're going to get into a problem that he's going to get bigger and stronger and somebody may get hurt. So I'm not trying to be flip, but we need to spend 95% of our time. We need to stop the behavior so nobody gets hurt, get him in a safe spot, and write it down so that we know if there's any problems, how often is that going down?
Sure.
And are people being more safe? But in general, I would, get into a safe position, even if you have to take his hands, put them down. We don't hit. Sternly, and then not like give him ice cream right away,
Right. Don't reinforce it. Don't even yelling is still a form of reinforcement.
Attention,
right? Attention.
It could be. Yeah.
So it's just very neutral, calm. We don't hit, and then moving on. I love that. And then for my walks, let's say he starts running away from me. How do I handle it in that moment?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I run up to him. I say, do we run away from mommy? And he goes, no, we don't. No, we don't.
Yeah.
So yeah. Alfie.
I know. So chapter 3 of my Turn Autism Around book is all about safety. And in the book, I talk about how one of my clients wandered away from his house, and I had him when he was 2 and 3. He wandered away at 6 from his dad's house, and he drowned in the neighbor's pool. Mm-hmm. And so, I have another family that I talk about in my safety chapter. They went to the Statue of Liberty. It was mom, dad, and a little 4-year-old. And, they were alarming their belts and all of a sudden the kid left, like in the middle of New York City. You know what I mean?
And what happened then?
They found him. But these safety issues are serious. And, we chatted a little bit ago. It's less about what you do in the moment after you find the kid that got out, from the Statue of Liberty security line. And it's more of the preventative things that you can do. So if he's going to be on a scooter, or, maybe you need to take a walk, and then if he flies through and gets away from you on a scooter, maybe you have to walk home and you need to carry the scooter, like as a natural consequence.
We don't we're not using a scooter. He threw something out the window. I think this was last year. And let me tell you, that window stayed up for the next year, pretty much, because he went through this period of throwing stuff out the window. And I tell him. And so then it just went up for a significant amount of time. He lost that privilege to get the wind in his face because he would throw whatever was in the back seat out on the highway, and then that behavior kind of went away. For the walks, though, when he is practicing walking safely, when he's near me, when he's listening, when I say red light, do I just reinforce that? Really great. You're walking so safely, Alfie. That's awesome. High five. Is it just that? Is it just positively reinforcing the good behavior?
Yes. And there's a whole science called teaching with acoustical guidance. I just happen to have one of these here. So it's a little counter clicker, like if you were counting people coming into a party.
Uh-huh.
And you could carry this with you on your belts or whatever. And he could be earning points, like, you're staying with me. That's so great. And then, once he gets 10 points, 100 points at the end of the walk on the scooter ride, he could write down how many points he earned. For some kids, it's not even about getting a treat based on these points. It's just the listening, I got a point, um, and earning points, whether that's, like I said, to turn in for a treat or just so that you don't just have to go like, good job, good job, good job. That doesn't really do much. Like, oh, we're at 17 points. That's amazing. You could write that down in the calendar. Like you got 195 points on that scooter ride. You're
You
amazing.
got 195 points and now we can,
Now
yeah,
we can get
go rock
ice cream.
climbing or
Yep,
do something.
exactly. And you could use, and it's just a clicker counter, and you can get them in different colors. So you could
Why the
have
clicker? Just because it's easy
it's
to.
it's um it's an audible click, and it's a whole science called teaching with acoustical guidance. And so that click is reinforcement. Um,
Whoa.
I
And
have a
have you
bonus
and you
video.
use it and it's effective.
Yeah. And I got certified in the teaching with acoustical guidance systems, and that's just one of the you don't need like extensive training, but you could, we could put that in the show notes if you do that kind of thing. But or if somebody's listening or you or your nanny wanted to, look more into that, you just type Mary Barbera clicker.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then you could see a blog where I explain more because there are nuances. I'm just saying, that might be something while he's on the scooter where he could earn points,
Yeah.
and he might really love that.
Okay. I have a question here, but I kind of feel like you answered it already, that there's a lot of criticism about ABA from autistic adults who say it was harmful or focused on compliance. What do you think they're getting right, and where do you see things evolving?
Yeah, see, back in the 1999 when Lucas was diagnosed, there was no websites. There was no, it was very early days, right?
Yeah.
So there was this 1996 book or three book, and you know, and I was, we put together what his ABA looked like. Um, so really only in the, I don't know, 2010, 2015. I don't know where it came from, but there is a subset. I do think it's better now. I don't know if it was
Well,
COVID
isn't at
or
one point they were electric shocking kids like in the 70s? I
yeah,
mean, you know?
yeah. Um, and I have always, I think because I'm a mom, I'm a nurse, I became a behavior analyst. Like I am a total positive approach. Like I don't even like yelling at kids or, you know, we don't do timeout or anything like that, but we have to be smart about it because if it's life or death, you know, we need to get the behavior under control.
Yep.
But I've been attacked by not physically attacked, but online, attacked by some adults who are self-diagnosed or whatever who hate ABA. It's like ABA, the science of ABA is like gravity. There's really no argument. Like you reinforce a behavior, it will go up. Like it's marketing, it's business. It's like it's just like gravity. Now, there has been a lot of criticisms about the getting ABA therapy. I have lots of criticisms about different types of ABA therapy that they're calling ABA, but they're not as they're not doing it like I would do it. Like
Or they're or
my
they're strongly pushing parents for 40 hours a week, which I don't know your thoughts on that or not. I felt for us it was too much,
Mhm.
but maybe some kids need that amount. I don't know.
Well, I also think kids need to be engaged during most of their waking hours, which is more like 80 to 100 hours a week. but what you had in place was ABA that wasn't cutting edge. It wasn't, there were lots of issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So um, I would just say that we need a child friendly ABA approach, whether you call it ABA or not. Like you, Laura, and I only came to your house one time. You know what I mean? But you have a natural tendency to, look, when I hold him up on the swing and I say, ready, set,
Yeah.
he'll say go, and then I'll swing him. Like you have a natural ability to implement a lot of these ABA techniques. And, you know, um, I've done some podcasts on Gestalt language processing. And, you know, I'm not saying that it can never work, but I would say that more of a verbal behavior approach, using my approach, would probably be stronger. Not
So
that you have to squelch all the things you have going, but
I think it's a nice combo because it's
mhm,
like you use what is it called? Reinforcers.
mhm.
So, okay, I know he wants to do this thing with me, so I'm just gonna get him to speak as much as he can while we're on our way to do this thing because he's incentivized. So that's ABA a bit, but it's
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But you're
But I'm
thinking of
narrating in a way that fits the Gestalt language processing. Yeah.
but as we're giving clicks, we're reinforcing safe behavior. If I say banana, or if they're saying words and I'm counting the words and just got 20 words, like it's all it all can be ABA, science of changing socially significant behavior. Like we all want each child to improve to their maximum potential in all areas.
Yeah.
And there's just different flavors of different things. And not to say that you can't combine approaches, you absolutely can. But I think there's a lot of confusion. And I think ABA is one of those confusing areas of trying to piece it together and trying to see how many hours each child needs and how that fits in with the family.
Yeah. Um, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate you sharing all of this knowledge with us. I wonder, what have you seen kids do over time that would genuinely surprise or give hope to parents who might be really scared right now?
Yeah, I mean, I have had, as a behavior analyst, I have seen thousands of kids actually, because I used to work for this big project in Pennsylvania called the Pennsylvania Verbal Behavior Project. And it was in public schools. And so, like, I have vast experience over the past 27 years working with kids all over the spectrum. And um, many kids are in college, fully conversational. Some aren't, but I think there's a lot more hope than ever
Mm.
for kids to really do well. And I do think that with the movement towards social media and, TikTok and Instagram and all those things, which I've been a part of for social media as long as it was there, I do think that there's a lot of mostly moms, some dads, some grandmoms. We even had a great grandfather one time
Oh,
take the
wow.
lead, become the captain of the ship.
Wow.
Um, and I just think there is a lot of hope for kids that things can get better. And even if they don't get better to where a child can live alone or drive a car, um, they still can have a good life. And you, as the mom, as the parents, you can also have a good life. And I think we just all need to be as positive as possible and really use the science to help our kids.
Yeah. And if they live with you forever, that's kind of awesome. I'm like, because with Alfie, I just don't know. I tried to ask you. I was like, what do you think? You're like, Laura, I'm not a fortune teller, because you just don't know. I just don't. But I think I'm just prepared now for the reality that there's a good chance. I don't know that he will live with me forever. And I'm kind of like, it's kind of awesome. I'm never going to be an empty nester. No. And I'm sure that's a whole nother conversation, is figuring out, as you get older, what happens. But yeah, it's just kind of like getting into radical acceptance and, embracing the reality of what is. And there's something really beautiful in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I've only met you in person once, but you are a bright light for your kids and for all the people that follow you. And you're really, putting yourself out there to not only help your two children, but everybody else. And so thank you for having me on. And I know we circled back after like 4 years of not connecting. So I look forward to seeing, Alfie's progress. And I mean, he has a lot of great strengths from what I learned about. Yeah, I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I will keep you posted. Yeah. Thank you so much. And is there anything else you want to leave the viewers with, or where can they find you? And I'll link all your stuff below.
Yeah. Yeah. So, marybarbera.com/assessment, or just go on my website. I have courses. I do some high touch coaching. And I have free stuff, lots of video blogs. I think I have over 1,000 video blogs on YouTube, and, just put one foot in front of the other. Each of our kids are so unique, but the science is here to support us. And I think we have a lot of reason to hope.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Laura.
All right. Talk soon.
Bye.
Thanks so much.